a little bit here. I think we're about to start yielding 7. Wow. Welcome back to the shop. So, we're going to continue with our flush cutter face-off series here. And in this one, we are going to have the pride of Italy, Hakko, I guess. And we're going to have the Crescent. Now, supposedly Crescent is like the old Wiss. Well, it's probably all new. This is a product of Vietnam. So that's interesting. It says it's finished in mainland China. Maybe they do the grinding, or they put the handles on, or something like that. But let's get this open and see how they look. So here's our Crescent flush cutter here. And just to make a note, there is a set of pliers that comes with the flush cutter in the particular package that I got. These look pretty nice, but we're not going to delve into these too much, but it is a nice fine-tipped spring-loaded pliers. So continuing with our flush cutters, here's our Crescent, and here is our, I don't know, I'll say Hakko. Looking at them, they both have cushioned grips. It looks like the construction is very similar. You can see they have a very similar style spring return on them. Obviously the size is very similar. The grind is kind of interesting here on the Crescent. I don't know if you can see that, but there's a little bit of contour there. We'll get a better look at that with the microscope. Whereas the Hakko is just like kissed across with a grinder probably. And I don't know if they heat treated this or what, but we'll also take a closer look at that when we get into the microscope. Alright, so we're going to take a look here at the Crescent first. Here we go. Let's get this in here. Looking at the top, we can see that everything's pretty nice on these. It looks like there's a little bit of metal left behind right up here. Same on the other side. You kind of see that piece there on the side. I don't know if it shows up good or not, but it does look like there's some metal left behind. Might be part of the manufacturing process. You can see they're well lubricated. The rivet joint here, pretty nice. They move very well. Nothing wrong there. You can see lubrication throughout. Let's go to the back here. Look at the spring. There you can kind of see how the spring works. It's just a piece of steel that pushes that away. Other side of the rivet. Guess I could try and wipe them down a little. I didn't realize they were that greasy. Yeah, either way. Looking at the back here, you can kind of see that piece up here. See how that sticks out? Kind of speaks to mass production. And when we close these, we'll get a better look at that with our backlight coming up here. But the grinding doesn't seem atrocious. How does it look as far as flat? Does look reasonably flat. You can see the marks here a little bit better. And let's get that into focus. There we go. That's got a decent grind. And some of these others that we've seen, I'm trying to figure out if this is an anvil style cutter or if it is indeed a yeah, that is mostly at a point. See how the other cutter looks. Yeah, there's a little bit of a flat, a little bit of relief in that. So I don't know, I'll be interested to see how that cuts. But that's definitely, when I get that together, I guess it was more obvious on the back. Doesn't look like it closes all the way. Now if I squeeze it, it does appear as though it closes all the way. Okay, jumping ahead, let's get our flush cutter in under the backlight. And there you can see that shape a little bit better that I'm talking about on the tips. A little bit of extra metal. Let's try and close these. This is me just closing them. I'm not squeezing them hard. The tip definitely closes first. You can see that very clearly. Let's take a look if I flip them around. There we go. Yeah, you can see that gap that we were originally talking about. So, I mean, if I squeeze them pretty hard, I can make that gap go away. But just a basic close doesn't look like they're ground in all that well. So, I mean, these aren't a high dollar tool, but they definitely show they're not the best of quality. They would certainly work. No doubt about that, they would cut things. But we'll see in the next segment here exactly how well they will cut things. Okay, so going with the Hakko, I'll just go with Hakko, I don't know. Let's take a look at how this one looks under the microscope, and we'll get a better idea for it. Alright, so looking at the Hakko, we can see it's a little bit cleaner made, actually. You can see the tips are more defined, not as much metal around the edges. Rivet here, not as much lubrication thrown around everywhere. They do still operate very well. Let's take a look at the back side here. We can see our spring. There's our return spring. How that works, it just bends, moves the thing back here. There we go, other side of the rivet. And our cutter's flush surface is not ground shiny, but you can see it was ground at one time. I wonder if these were treated as something at some point. And we might get a little bit of light through that, but they look like they close a little bit better than the Crescent. Let's look at the other side. Yeah, they're open a little bit, and I'm not pushing hard. I feel like if I push harder, they will definitely close. So, pretty interesting. These look to be made a little bit nicer than the Crescent, but like I said, you never know. Alright, so we got our backlight out. Let's take a look here. What we're going to see. What are your guesses? Just a light close. We have some light through them. They see the very tip didn't close all the way at the top of the frame there, but neither did the very back. Let's flip it over here, see if we see anything different. So we can see tip not exactly closed all the way, and all the way back through there open a little bit. Now, that's just me barely holding that together. If I push, squeeze them together, you can see I can close that gap up, and if I turn the angle, you can't see any light through. I'll do that again this way. Squeeze a little harder. Maybe just a whiff of light getting through there, but nothing drastic. They're a little bit better. I think these are a little bit better than the Crescent, just looking at them, but you never know. So before we get to going over to the vise, let's just take a look here at the edge of the cutter, like we did on the Crescent, on the Hakko. It looks pretty nice. Let's see how good our grind is. So now you can see there's an abrupt change there that doesn't have that little flat in between. So these are two different styles of cutter. There again, you can see that's got that abrupt line along, I'll use the crescent to point at it, along this surface right here, there's only the one line, whereas if we look at the crescent, see how there's like three ground surfaces? There, I lit it up pretty good. So you got 3 ground surfaces. One here on the back, one there, partway through, and the third being the face there, going in. So these are 2 different style cutters. So I'll kind of be curious to see how they stack up as far as going through on the vise. Alright, so we're going to continue with looking at the crescent first. We're going to get our tie wrap in here just like we've done before. Hold this on a bit of an angle so we can see the difference. I just don't want it parallel with the grooves there on the tie wrap. So we're going to put a little bit of angle on it, and I am going to start tightening the vise while I hold all of this somehow. There we go. So I block off everything visible. There we go. Let's try that. At least until the cutter holds itself, we're going to have to do this. Okay. 2, 3. I think I can let go. 4.5. 5.4. 5.2. Looks like it's starting to yield. Yeah, it looks like it's most of the way through. And let me not block that. And it's through. Okay, so that was about 5-ish. We saw 5.5, but it was pretty short. And you can see we didn't jam the tool, so we'll put the cut tie wrap over here by the microscope, and we'll be back over there shortly. Let me reset. We'll get the other tie wrap here and the Hakko in the vise, and we'll be right back. Okay, we're back. We got the Hakko in the vise, and I got it adjusted just like we did for the Crescent, that we can get this tie wrap all the way back into the cutter, about as far as the cutter is. So let's start giving this some clamping force. Give it the clamps a little bit here. Here we go. Trying to watch our numbers here. 2. I think it's going to hold itself. We're up to 3. 3.54. 4.1. Got up to 5. 5.5. 6. I think we're about to start yielding. 7. Wow. So that aggressively cut through. I don't know what I saw there as far as tension, but you can see the vise still has, after it relaxed, we have 2.4. I think the Crescent we had 1 point something. So this took considerably more force to cut through the Hakko. So it's looking like the Crescent actually took less force to cut through. Let me go look for that piece of tie wrap that went flying across the shop violently, and I will see if we can take a look at this in the microscope. Okay, we're back. We're going to take a look in the microscope here. Maybe, if the microscope will record. There we go. Alright, so we're going with the Crescent. We're going to take a look at its tie wrap first. Let's take a look here. So, right away, you can see how that kind of tore through, right? Look at that. You can see all that little bit of fine plastic just at the tip of that piece, and you can see how it's angled. Get a better look at that on the profile, but let's look at the other side first. On this side, a little harder to see, but it looks like it too is angled. Let's look at our side profile. See, look at how that's pinched off. If If you recall, when we looked at the icon had a super crisp cut. So this isn't anywhere near as sharp as the icon, even though it took, in this round, the least amount of force. If you recall, the icon had very little force. So, and if you didn't see that video, check out our video. Maybe we'll link it up here of the Snap-on versus icon. It's the first one we did in this series. So looking at our cutoff piece here, you can kind of see a jagged line there. That'll be on the other side. But this is actually not pushed out too much. It's pretty clean, which is kind of what you'd want to see. A little bit of material pushed out in the tip there. Not too bad. You can see a definite ridge in this, right in the middle. So those cutters came in both ways and created that. Alright, so let's take a look at the Hakko's cut here. Now if you remember, this violently flew across the shop, so we'll be curious to see the difference in cut quality. On this side, you can see a definite angle. On this side, we can also see a definite angle. A little bit of material at the, just finely squeezed at the point there, at the tip. And we look at the side profile, look at that. That has been squeezed, not cut, more than squeezed. Let's look at it this way. See how it makes a point? That's been squeezed. Let's look at our other cutoff piece here. A little bit cleaner. We've seen this. But you see signs of that squeezing. See how the gloss in that just dives off there at the back? That's showing that it's been not cut as well. It's a pretty more of a flush cut there now. If you remember, when we test these, this is the flat side of the cutter, because I jam it through the vise like that. So this is our flush cut side. So if any of them are going to be clean, it should be this side. And it actually isn't a bad cut, but it did take a fair amount of force. You can also see, I don't know if I can get that. Let's see. Maybe I'll have to readjust a little. See how the plastic is very discolored on here? That's been signs of stress. Let's look at the Crescent and see if that has the same thing going on. It doesn't have as much. You can see the lines in that though where it went through. So that really kind of ripped through, and the Hakko actually kind of looks like it broke through, and that's probably why we got that violent cut off, because that's that discolored plastic you see in the middle here. That's from when that went flying. That just instantly catastrophically failed and went shooting out. So kind of interesting. If I were to try and put a guess on one of these, I feel like the build quality of the Hakko is probably a little bit better. I like that it's more flush, but the Crescent took less force to get through, and I mean, both cutoff pieces are decent. The Crescent isn't horrific. It's a nice, pretty clean, though it's been torn through. It's a hard one to say. They're both around the same price point, so I don't know that you'd go wrong with either. I think just because the Crescent cut through nicely and didn't fling stuff across the shop, I think I'd go with the Crescent on this round. That whole thing's flying every time you cut them. That gets a little old sometimes. So look at another round here of flush cutters. We're going to continue going through some of these. If you have suggestions, maybe put them in the comments. Hopefully we'll get through most of that stuff. I guess we have one other test here that we can do that I forgot about. How much do they weigh? So let's get set up for that. Okay, our last test here. It's always nice to know how much weight you're lugging around in the tool bag. So let's put the Crescent on. I'm going to go with 54 grams, 1.9 ounces. Let's get our units back where they were. And the Hakko, a little bit heavier, 61.3 grams and 2.16 ounces. So if you want lighter, if every last bit counts, I'd say the Crescent is the one for you. I think I like the cutting characteristics of the Crescent better than the Hakko. The Hakko took a surprising amount of force to go through. That was actually really interesting. Didn't expect that, but we got more of these to go through. There may be more surprises just like that. All in all, not bad tools. I mean, for the money, these are all cheap price point tools for the most part. They're not like the Snap-on we did or anything like that. They're all kind of in that same middle range. So, hope this was interesting. Thanks for watching, and catch you on the next one. Round 4 coming up.